Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's Monday morning at the Salsa Parlor YouTube or, the Salsa Parlor podcast stream, whatever you listen to this on. But, hey, you're listening to or watching The Obstacle. I'm your host, Erickson Just. Across me is your other host, Louis Michael.
What's up?
And this is a show where we basically argue over shit that everyone else argues over, except, it's sometimes a little bit more nuanced conversation I think most people have over that stuff.
Yeah, it's a good back and forth instead of just two people going, I'm right.com.
Yeah, it can get there, though, can it, sometimes?
Sometimes.
Not a very busy news week. Not a lot happened last week. Nothing really notable to talk about. Nothing really changed. The world kept turning. We're still, I don't think there's anything noteworthy.
Nothing happened?
Not one thing.
Not one
It's
thing?
been kind of a slow news week.
Yeah.
I was just bored,
Yeah?
pretty much.
You didn't keep up to date on anything?
The Oscars happened.
Okay.
Did you know that?
No.
See?
Nobody cares.
Nobody cared.
Nobody cares.
No, and
What was the 2020 movie of the year?
No
movie was more.
It was something I don't even remember. It was once again, it was an Asian director, female. That's all I know because that's all the headlines were showing. It was basically saying why this is good for Asians in Hollywood, which was just like they won literally the last Oscar. So
Yeah, it's
stop
probably gonna
acting
be the last
like
Oscars.
this is what's that?
It's probably gonna be the last Oscars.
Dude, I didn't watch that because I'm not gonna pay for cable, and ABC will only let you stream it if you have cable, which to me seems like a very backwards way of going about it. It's
To
just
see
like
the Oscars?
you can stream this online if you are already paying for a cable service. It's like, well, I clearly would have a television if I was owning ABC.
Dude,
so
I'm gonna burn it. There's a Kalamazoo open micer that like an amazing joke about how he talked about how eventually there's gonna be so
you're gonna
many.
burn someone else's joke.
Yeah, who cares?
Can we give his name then?
No, I don't even know who he is. He's just an open micer. It's an incredible joke. Okay. Nobody watching here is ever gonna see him and then be like, oh my god.
Wow.
But,
okay. So apparently now it's an awesome joke, but this guy's never gonna make it.
No,
so
here's the thing. If he does and he does that joke, I'll be like, oh, that's that guy.
Okay.
And people will be like, this is a good bit. But I'm not even going to deliver how he does it. I'll just tell you, I'll ruin it by just telling you the premise. He just talks about how eventually there's going to be so many streaming services that somebody's going to bundle them all together, and then you can just buy that bundle of streaming services, and they're just going to reinvent cable. And I'm like,
that's literally what fucking tall fat guy said.
yeah, you had to get that one out early, didn't you?
Italian.
Hey Zach, go to the cheap used meter.
Everyone
How
likes
far is
him.
that?
Everyone likes him right now. Everyone
And we're pulled.
He's a New Yorker.
There it is.
Well, no, who am I talking?
All I can think
of the
is
cis.
all I can think of
Views from the
is
cis.
no. Jeff Goldblum is the only thing coming in.
Comic. Tall guy. He's newish now because everyone just finally started hearing about him during the pandemic. He blew up. He got the Netflix deal, which he did his bullshit web show.
No.
Oh my god, I can't believe I'm blanking.
I mean,
on it.
if you mean Daniel Tosh,
No,
like,
he's just recently got big. He's like he wears really gaudy like outfits. Think about one of the newest, freshest comics that everyone's talking about lately. Name them. You can't even name them.
No.
Okay.
I'm bad at knowing up and coming comedians that I don't.
It's like Paul Thomas Anderson's the name. Dude, I am losing my fucking mind.
You got
white
Zach
dude,
click-clacking away trying to find it.
He's got black hair. He's tall. He makes good jokes.
He's a new comic.
And he's not new, but he just blew up.
What's
over the
the name
last year.
of his show?
He doesn't have a show. He does like he did that online shows that was basically this last week tonight, except it was on the internet.
Andrew Schultz.
There we go.
Oh my God,
Andrew
dude.
Schultz. Paul was way off.
Yeah,
Anyway,
what the? How did you describe Andrew Schultz? You literally didn't bring up like New York sounding dude, Flagrant 2.
Yeah.
This is who you said.
Yeah,
I know that's not who it was.
No, show him who
But here,
he
okay,
meant.
bring up Andrew Schultz real quick.
That's where we're going.
No, I know. Bring him up.
Paul Thomas Anderson and Andrew Schultz.
That looks like a Paul, though, doesn't it? That looks like a Paul.
You know what? The shaved face, clean
that looks like a Paul.
smile. Yeah, I'll give you that.
If he was not one of the funniest motherfuckers on earth, right? If you just saw that guy at a pool party, you'd be like, that guy's name is Paul.
Well, I'll tell you right now, he did the best thing he ever did was that cheese stash into like that conquistador on vacation look he's got going on, or on a raid. Yeah,
Andrew Schultz Matador.
Yeah, doesn't he?
Maybe he's not even Italian. I don't know what he is. I know he's not Jewish, even though everyone thinks he is.
Really?
Yeah, he's not Jewish apparently, or he's like very, 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 very small part of him is Jewish.
What, his last name?
Either way, he's the one who has a joke about like wrapping up. It wasn't even a joke. He was saying on Rogan of all places about how like that's the future. Like eventually, like all these new streaming services are just the new networks. And eventually, and we all think we're making a steal by picking and choosing, but it'll just be like television eventually, where it's all wrapped up.
Yeah.
So that you're right. That Kalamazoo comic's never going to make it because he's stealing bits from.
He's stealing Andrew Schultz's bit.
I'm never going to make it because I can't remember a goddamn name for the life of it.
I do. What I love is you called him like a young up and coming comic. I'm like Andrew Schultz is damn near 40.
I said he just blew up.
Yeah, but you made it. I'm thinking like young comics though.
To public consciousness, he's obviously been at it for years.
Yeah, for sure, man. He was on Man Code or whatever.
He created it.
Yeah, that was like 10 years ago. What?
That's right. He is Scottish.
Oh, he's Scottish? Wow,
like
he does not.
No, he doesn't.
He does not look Scottish.
He comes off as like a Brooklyn Italian.
Yeah,
is what he comes off.
I think that's just what living in New York does, though. Is no matter what you are, you're kind of Italian if you're born and raised.
They definitely won the culture war when it came to Brooklyn.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I kind of wanna move to Brooklyn.
I mean, I kind of do too, and I kind of want to right now because if you're going to do it, and actually I was going to tell this to Zach's girl and Zach because I want them both. Obviously, not going to go without each other, but if you want to move there, you should move there now because
Brooklyn?
like it is the best price you're ever going to get.
Yeah.
Period. It's like from this point on until China takes over, in which case basically you just have to win a lottery to live there.
Yeah.
It's the best price you can get to live in New York.
Yeah, I don't know.
No Hong Kong.
A Brownstown. What was that? No Hong Kong. Just do
no Hong Kong.
Jesus Christ.
Welcome to
Oh God.
Do the Chinese accent or
right.
the bastardization.
We got 2 strikes on Harrison today. We are not even 10 minutes into the podcast.
This isn't a Saturday morning show. This is just
it's not the Saturday morning show. I know it's 2 dudes.
Just two dudes
talking, bro. Dude, it's just you and me. It's locker room talk, and I'm gonna make some. I'm gonna make these jokes early and get them out of the way.
Make them early. I'm gonna make them all through the entire stream, dude. I know. Dude. I'm at the end of my rope. I don't care. I'm not trying to become. Like I said, I was shocked by when I saw the video of what this looks like today because Zach's made me look the way I wanted to look in a podcast probably since I was like 17. And I just gave up on all my dreams of ever being like an entertainer like just 5 weeks ago.
Really?
And the Oscars have definitely helped solidify that because like what I was trying to say is like, dude, I saw clips from it.
Yeah.
And here's what's interesting. First of all, what I think is fascinating is the Golden Globes happened like a month or 2 ago. I think it happened in like February.
Yeah.
And what they did with that is they did a small room.
Yep.
They had to have an event, right? They got to have a show. We got to be able to do this. They had an event, small room. Everyone was social distance in the room, but the people who were in the room weren't even actors. They brought in first responders.
I remember that. It was
made
Bill
them
Burr.
wear masks.
Yeah, Bill Burr.
It was Bill Burr's thing.
Yeah.
Made them wear masks and treated it like some sort of special event.
Yeah.
Which I was like, okay, so what's the point and how is that even special for them when all they're doing is watching actors accept the rewards from the comfort of their own home on Zoom. So this time, what do they do with the Oscars? Well, we can't have regular people. So they got rid of the regular people, brought in the actors, let them not wear masks, and basically did like their own special kind of living room style event.
Dude, that doesn't fucking
It doesn't
shock
surprise me, but
it's
just interesting, like, the attitude of Hollywood, which is just like, it's like, well, can we get first responders in there this time too? Because they might want to meet,
Leo.
I mean, here's the other thing too. Is like, Chadwick Boseman, I think, was the biggest loss because he's dead, and they didn't give him the best actor.
Hold on,
the only best actor I knew on the lineup.
Okay, now I get what you're talking about. I'm like, Chadwick Boseman's the biggest loss. I'm like, yeah, he's dead, but now you're talking about he didn't win his Oscar.
He should have won.
What was the movie?
I don't know. Something like it was called like Layla's Black Bottom or something like that.
Okay,
dude, the movies it was hilarious. Looking at the entire list of nominated movies, it was like every bullshit independent film that the studios basically didn't care about, like burning during the pandemic,
like Oscar bait nonsense.
Yeah, well, not even Oscar, but not even Oscar bait, because like you normally.
Well, I was going to ask you what
prestige
movies?
films, right?
Yeah.
I think I took a picture because I wanted to read you the list.
Dude,
of the,
it's funny to me that you bring up the whole like entertainer thing,
picture.
And it's like I've always kind of hated. I just like doing stand up. That's my favorite thing to do. so I'm fucked. Like, I love doing stand up.
Yeah.
But I look at the guys that I really, look up to, where I'm like, yeah, they're not trying to be anything other than a stand up, like Doug Stanhope's or like Kanane to a degree, where it's like, yeah, they'll do other stuff if it's there, but it's like, man, I don't know Kanane that well, but like I met Doug Stanhope, and like you could just tell that was a guy who's like, I love fucking doing stand up comedy, and anything else that happens because of it, cool.
Right. Yeah.
So,
what did that do with the best picture?
Well, just kind of going into like how you hated the entertainment world.
I'll take this back. Actually, now that I'm seeing the posters, I actually recognize 2 of these movies.
Which one?
But here are the best picture nominees. Okay, these are the nominees. The Trial of Chicago 7.
Okay.
I mean,
I heard that was awesome. I didn't watch it yet.
I'm sure all these movies are
awesome.
They're
the
best
Trial of
picture
Chicago
nominees.
7.
They wouldn't be on here if they weren't high caliber, awesome pictures that also make sure that at least there's 20% Asians on set, 20% black people on set, 20% white
Hey, everybody. Erickson, hang on. We got to get this out of the way. Because we're on the Obstacle and Hilarious, and every week somebody messages me, why do you have that racist dude on the podcast? Every week.
They say that racist
Everybody,
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got some really, high-minded friends, it sounds like.
And it's hilarious because they're like, oh, who's this Ben Shapiro guy you got? And I just want to say it is hilarious that you send
Ben Shapiro.
the Rogan clip of that the one guy talking about like being backed into a corner about
Dave Smith.
Dave Smith,
the future president of the United States. Yeah, sure, okay.
It's just so funny to me that you like you sent me that.
You took the wrong message for that. It's not about being backed in the corner. It was his argument.
No, I get it. Man.
Well, I know you get it, but the way you're presenting it right now, as if like to your friends who think I'm racist, is that like his frustration was about being backed in the corner. It's about, we talked earlier on like 3 episodes. You were saying like you should just, if someone calls you racist, you should just denounce it. Why don't you denounce it? And he was making a great argument about how when you denounce and you acknowledge the conversation, now you're the person who has to prove that you're not racist.
Right. And my pushback to that is you have to then look at what you did prior to have that person even accuse you of that. Because if you say shit that then makes people question it,
and that's
fine, valid.
And that's fine in a world where we're just talking about like personal lives, where it's like, if, for instance, all your buddies saying I'm a racist, it's like if I feel like that's a problem, it's my job to ask myself, well, what is giving people that opportunity? But when we're talking about like the president of the United States, not Donald Trump, by the way, the president or people in power and a entity that wants to find a way to take that person down, if they keep on saying you're racist and that person keeps on having to defend themselves, it's not a matter of them having to stand back and be like, well, what am I doing that's giving them that opportunity? It's like, no, they're just trying to put you on the defensive.
Right.
So you're constantly talking about whether or not you're racist rather than what you want to talk about.
Here's the thing. That's been such a blanket statement of people going like, oh my God, they're just shouting everyone's a Nazi. They're just saying everyone's a racist.
They are,
and
dude.
They're
They
diluting
literally
it.
are.
Here's the thing, though. When you do that and then you say, oh my God, that's what they're doing, and it's losing its effect, I'm like, sure, but also when they do, or the proverbial whoever's, actually do call somebody out on some real shit, you still have to address it. Like, oh yeah, that guy's actually on some bullshit.
I'm not saying when someone does something racist, we should see that you're.
I'm understanding what you're saying.
It comes from the whole like, Donald Trump did this thing that we are going to perceive as a racist policy,
right?
When it could be perceived as so many different other ways. And you're like, well, why don't we just have him say he's not racist? Like, he said he's not racist. He said it a dozen times,
but grudgingly, a couple of times.
Because he doesn't. Because
but you're bringing up the specific examples of Trump, and if you want to go the specific examples of Trump, we can.
I've seen it. The only reason why I bring him up, and he's a better example than most, is that he's the only person who had a platform that they couldn't take away from.
Well, he's also in the spotlight.
And he was also in the spotlight. Like, it wasn't like they could just be like, okay, he's canceled now. Like, they tried to cancel him. They tried numerous times to cancel him. He's the first president to be impeached twice and actually beat both impeachments.
Did the second one they never did because he was out of
it passed and it didn't go through.
It didn't get to the Senate though, I thought.
I'm pretty sure.
Did it go to the Senate?
Well, look, there was a court hearing over whether or not
you could impeach somebody.
No, he was responsible for the for January 6th Capitol siege, and there was a court hearing. I have to imagine that was the impeachment hearing.
Yeah,
and it was dismissed.
So the House voted to impeach him again, but they never sent it to the Senate.
I'm pretty sure the second one, the second one definitely went through, because what we saw at that point was
because he was impeached twice. You read about that.
Yeah, exactly. So it went through. It went through. They had the trial, and it didn't work. And the reason why I'm almost 100% confident about the second one going all the way through to the House was you saw because of what happened. The January 6th, one thing that did happen was a lot of Republican Party members basically immediately turned heel and said, okay, we're not fighting this fight anymore. Tons of people who were against a big on voter fraud and trying to argue that this was a rigged election, and that we've got to support this president, that Donald Trump needs to be elected for another 4 years. They immediately turned their team that day.
Check this out. You've got on the second one, it did go to the Senate, and you need a 2/3 majority to convict him, and there was only, of the 67 votes in the Senate, so it did go to the Senate, 57. So by 10 votes, he was not convicted. Yeah.
Convicted.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Huh. So, I mean...
I don't know enough about the entire process.
So it starts off with an impeachment, starts in the House, and then the actual removal and conviction goes to the Senate. So
the Senate... So it's not a trial. So
it is a trial when it gets to the Senate.
Oh,
so the House...
The Senate does a trial.
Mm-hmm. So the House does the actual is what happened, an impeachable offense. Yeah. And so Bill Clinton, impeached, not removed from office. Trump, impeached, not removed from office. So both times it went to the Senate. And the Senate, it's a legitimate impeachment. It's something the president should have done.
Yeah.
But whether or not they're guilty or charges are brought up against them is the Senate. So... yeah, it's impeachment and removal from office. They go hand in hand, but not always.
The impeachment can pass, but the removal cannot. That much I know. I thought there was a trial at one point. I guess they had a separate trial to see if he should be
even impeached after as well.
No, but did they bring in lawyers for the Senate?
In the Senate, absolutely.
They bring in lawyers. And then there's a defense.
There was lawyers on both sides, because even before they tried to impeach him the second time, they're trying to set the precedent of you can't impeach a president that's been removed, and there's nothing that says you can't. It just hadn't been done.
Right, haven't done yet. So. They wanted to make sure. Either way, my point was, it just goes back to the whole idea of I think racism and Nazism is become a catchphrase for basically saying other, bad guy, person we want outside and canceled out of our circles and our culture. And my argument about that whole not having to defend yourself, why I showed that clip, was that the more you have to constantly basically disavow and always be on this defensive virtue signaling position, the more you basically are being forced to self-police and be cautious of what you say and having to always think about optics perspective. And if you want to be an entertainer, I get that.
Hang on, just so we're on the same page here, because I understand where he was coming from. In the same way, when something is ludicrous or just absolutely nonsensical, you don't even want to have the debate to legitimize it. So the same way he was talking about, when somebody says you're Nazi and you have to back up and be like, whoa, I'm not a Nazi, right?
You shouldn't even have to acknowledge
right.
it.
Well, here's the thing. I got a full point I'm making here about in the same way he's oh, you don't legitimize a point by even discussing it. In the same way the scientific
that's a tactic that all politicians
in
do.
the same vein, scientists told Bill Nye not to have a debate with that Dawkins guy or whatever about creationism versus science.
Well, probably because Bill Nye's not a scientist.
Well, no, the reason being is, first of all, he is. The title scientist is easy enough to get. You don't have to you can have a degree and become a scientist.
So what you're saying is scientists in general bullshit.
But no, that's not what I'm saying either.
Well, my point is he's not someone
if you say
trust.
Professor or doctor, sure. Okay. Scientist, you can have that title just by, a degree in biology. So if I see any kind of report that says scientists say this, I shouldn't really take much credence because those people didn't really do If you want to go into this, we'll go into this. No, you're being ridiculous
I'm
right
not being
now.
ridiculous.
Yes, you are.
How am I being ridiculous?
Because you're being dismissive a little bit.
No,
You're being
no. I'm trying to get to the point. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I'll get there. Hang on, then just give me 2 seconds, because I'm making a point, and now I have to defend the point of the point.
Okay.
About scientists, right? If you want to say somebody's a scientist and legitimate credentials, when scientists say or scientist says that, look into that. But if you have the degree in biology and you're working in a lab, you can have the title of scientist. It's a non-authoritative title that is beyond, you don't
authoritative. So when I hear that, what I'm hearing is if non-authoritative means that when someone says scientists all say that wearing masks, protect against COVID, that's not an authority.
As opposed to doctors and or professors, right? It's a blanket.
Less credence.
It's a blanket term, right?
Right.
To say, back off, I'm a scientist. Okay.
What?
You didn't get that. Back off, man. I'm a scientist. Doesn't
Never
matter.
Heard that.
But point being, right?
Yeah.
So Bill Nye the Science Guy. I feel like you're still not on board with the whole scientist thing.
Well, no, I'll say he's a scientist. Sure, if you're saying that basically it's a low bar to become one.
It's not a low bar, but I would say it's lower than doctor or professor.
Yeah, exactly. My point is like
it's less authoritative, is what I should say.
Than a professor or somebody who really has like a PhD in like mechanics, environmentalism, and stuff that like.
Sure, but I mean, now we can go into how much do you want to appeal to the authority of your degree or your title? Because you've met plenty of dumbasses.
If we're going to appeal to authority, which I will argue is not always necessarily a good idea, then it better be a strong authority, right? So it's like, if you're going to say to me, like, well, and once again, I'm not saying you people who think I'm a racist, apparently, I'm not saying global warming doesn't exist, but if we're going over the whole, what are you laughing at? If we're going
because, man, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I'll go into that with you later.
That's fine. I mean, I don't, it's so be it. If I'm on the path I'm on, I'm doing the best I can to ride that wave. If you're going to talk about, for instance, like climate change, right? And you're saying, well, all scientists agree, right? Mm-hmm. But you're saying that, like, well, that's not. It's like, and that's the authority we should be listening to. Right. But you're saying it's not even the highest authority. It's just like, why am I listening?
So it's scientist is a term they would use. We're talking about a proverbial article at this point that we're just.
I mean, let's be honest. There's probably tons of articles.
Sure, but when scientists say, or when scientists say on a commercial, look into who those scientists are and their credentials.
Well, for instance, let's look at Bill Nye. Yeah. He is an actor. He's an entertainer.
For sure, he's both.
He was playing a scientist.
You can be both.
You can be.
Yeah,
both.
You can be both.
He is mostly, but it's like, okay, what scientific papers has he written? What studies
Bill
has
Nye
he done?
has a lot of stuff published in different journals.
Okay.
In Science Magazine, he's been published, and he's been peer reviewed by people with actual degrees. Yeah.
Okay.
He's gone
in.
The most recent one he brought up was like sedimentary rock studies or whatever
rock studies.
Yeah, it was a geology thing he was working on with a bunch of people about the layers of the earth and the crust, and specifically why the earth is older than 6,000 years.
From what I've heard, he's not very revered in the science community.
For sure, in the same way.
He's not considered to be like one of the highest minds.
Right, right. That's fine, but my point being is he was more than able to debate the guy Dawkins about. Right, but here's the thing. The whole thing is the reason the scientific community or the professorial community or whatever, the Science Magazine, the higher authorities that be, didn't want Bill Nye to even have this debate about creationism is because it legitimized in some people's eyes, especially on the creationism side of it.
Oh, the argument. Yes,
that legitimized the argument.
Yes.
Which, going back into your point being of when people are throwing around Nazi or you're a Nazi so easily, and then you denying it, the royal you.
Well, you mean denying or not acknowledging
the royal you, having to acknowledge one way or the other, saying I'm not a Nazi.
Yeah.
You then are, again, I get it. You're emboldening one side by you have to address it. Whereas I feel the clip you sent me, specifically that guy, what was his name? Jason Smith. Dave Smith. His point being is you shouldn't even legitimize it when somebody comes at you about it by having to deny it. You should say, what you're saying to me is ludicrous because nothing I've done, it makes me a Nazi in any way. And sure, at some times or in some examples, I would believe that. But at other times, and this is where I'm like, hey, you have to look at what you're doing and is the person. And here's the thing. You look at what you're doing. You make your own judgment here, whether or not you want to legitimize it. But if you've done something where somebody goes like, hey, man, what you're saying or what you're doing comes off as this, if it's then on you to be like, I'm not even going to acknowledge that, or I'm going to say, no, I'm not that. And a lot of the times I feel when people say like, I don't even need to, I'm not a Nazi. I don't even need to acknowledge that I'm not a Nazi. I'm like, okay, sure. Like for you, I'd say probably a funny example, like, yeah, you, Erickson, don't need to be like I'm not a Nazi. But then you see a guy like Richard Spencer or other like alt-right kind of leaning people that are in the same vein where they're like, oh, I don't even want to legitimize that. It's ludicrous. I'm like, no, it's not. You're using 88 and HH.
I'll acknowledge that. Like, look, at the end of the day, there's like it's all a game, right? And there's different moves that you can play. But the question is like, what moves are legitimate and which moves are clearly just like at the end of the day moves? Like, they're just like, I'm just trying to avoid. And that's there's both ways to play it, right? The media is trying to do things, or even just groups are trying to do things by accusing you of things, and you have to make a choice of whether or not I'm going to acknowledge that thing. Am I even going to discuss that topic?
Right.
And you have to make a decision in that moment about which one you want to go forward with. But on a grander scale, I think we can all agree that if you don't want to acknowledge the conversation, that's not an admission of guilt.
Not always. I'll give you that. But as an
if they bring up a bunch of evidence, then you are having more and more pressure to want to acknowledge those claims.
But as an let's go back to the observer now, right?
Yeah.
You have the two people that are in their discussion about who's what. I think one of the examples, we'll go back to Trump because it's an easy example that everybody can pretty much know the references to. Specifically, the Proud Boys thing, where he said stand by.
That was a terrible idea. I don't care. That's different. That's different than saying I'm not a Nazi or not a racist. That's literally just like,
for the sake of the discussion point, though, I'm just saying like that came up specifically because they're like, hey man, like you're very friendly towards white supremacists, and they didn't say hey man. They were like, hey man,
he's friendly towards them.
He definitely is. The fertilizer is there for them to. Yeah.
They mean like you gave them fertilizer.
No.
That would be a little bit suspect.
Right, making bombs.
Yeah.
But no, it was a rich environment for white supremacy and hate groups to really thrive.
What was?
Donald Trump's presidency.
I don't understand. I don't like how. So how much?
You don't understand, or you don't think so?
Well, how
you don't understand, or you don't think so?
What are the statistics of? I don't see how that's
the
case.
Fact that
how does white supremacy as a like policy and a group, and I mean the media talked about it a lot more. So yeah, it would definitely feel like there's a lot more white supremacy, but I didn't see white supremacy
I know
firsthand,
big media talked about it more,
but I didn't see much more evidence of white supremacy.
So you can actually
the cops are still killing people just as much as they were killing people.
Sure, higher no. Where are you getting those numbers? Hang on, I'm going to stop you right there because that's anecdotal. Tell me exactly, because I'll tell you right now. Looking at both what the NAACP and the ACLU had during Donald Trump's presidency.
Yes.
Legitimate race-based violence and admittedly race-based attacks and assaults went up. By admission of the people doing the crimes.
By admission.
By admission of the people.
Yes.
Okay. By admission.
Okay.
They went up.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
By what percentage?
If you want to look at it just by numbers, what's that?
By what percentage?
I would want to say somewhere in the high single digits.
High single digits, 7%, like 8%.
Right around there, Bounce.
That's okay. That would be
a noticeable jump.
That's a noticeable jump. Yeah, sure.
Like for instance,
that's something.
3% is considered a noticeable jump in any kind of crime wave.
Sure.
So if you have a city where like robberies are up 3%, that's like a noticeable mark.
Right.
So like the 7 to 8% is that's
right. Okay.
That's a twofold jump up.
Okay. So do you think that we're in where we're at right now culturally with this racial divide mostly because of the Donald Trump presidency?
I would say another thing they've looked at about progression, especially in America, civil rights movement, is there's always snapback for every level of progression that's been made. So after the Civil War, and you had the Reconstruction era of the South, and that was the first time that this country had tried to right certain racial wrongs, specifically black slaves in this country. You saw Jim Crow laws and the actual creation of like KKK and other groups and police forces that were specifically meant to police black people. That was the first like bounce back after what I would say the Emancipation Proclamation and then the actual, North winning the Civil War and freeing slaves. I would say that's the first movement really of us righting some tragedy in this country, only to be answered by a bounce back of Jim Crow laws and actual, race-based violence and hate groups starting. Then if you fast forward to the next kind of leap in civil rights would be probably the work era, and after black people got the right to vote, you then saw the initiation of gerrymandering for the first time in a big way, and then you would also see other things where poll violence to the point where they had to amend the Constitution again to protect everybody's right to vote. Then fast forward to the 60s, post World War II. There was some stuff in World War II as well, but post World War II, the actual civil rights movement, right? You see that kind of do what it does: integration of whites and blacks in schools, desegregation, all that. Then you see another rise in actual violence there, and actual race-based violence, and that's when the ACLU and
a lot of these are, though you're talking about our government policies and the way that the overall political system is taking advantage of
but the government is
group because they want to make sure they maintain control.
Government policies and the government at the time is definitely a reflection of the country.
Sure. No, I'm not. Well, no, I don't know if I agree with that, because I don't feel like this. I don't feel like this government does remotely what I believe I would like the country to do, or what I think a lot of people want it to do. I think people are just will be happy when they feel like the person who's in office is on their side. And they assume that what they're doing must be for the betterment of them and their country. But I don't think most of the policies
Hang on, let's pause that and go back to what you just said.
What do you mean?
You literally just said a line that was most people think.
Well, I said I don't think that.
No, I know you don't, but you just said most people think that they want somebody in charge that's going to be on their side.
I think people just because for instance right now we have the Democratic president.
Right.
Let's not even talk about names. We have a Democratic president.
Right.
But a lot of things he's been doing are the exact same as what a Republican president was doing.
Sure, but
before he left.
The point you made a really poignant point there, where you said people want
their guy in.
Right. And I would say specifically, you saw it at the ends of the bell curve during Donald Trump's presidency. That emboldenment of that group that's like, this is our fucking guy.
On both sides.
Okay, so did he, and I do too. I saw the people that wanted to counteract these hate groups, and it was sure. Go ahead, explain it.
It's just I don't know, dude. It's just this is the only thing I was going to talk about when it came to Chauvin, was that because I remember, I think you called me, somebody called me, he's like, how do you feel about the results? And I was just like, dude, at the end of the day,
I don't think that was me.
Somebody did, and I was just like, at the end of the day, it's just I feel tremendously numb and unimpressed, because it's great, I'm glad that we at least are able to acknowledge manslaughter.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's just it's just one more person in prison. I don't see it as an actual change the
See,
police
that
system.
blows my mind. You don't see the significance of it at all. The effect
no.
what happened between him and George Floyd, right? Just that action alone. The fact that you're numb to it, or you don't think it's a big deal because it's something.
It's going to scare cops.
Here's the thing: something happened. That legitimately affected the world. Now, whether or not I don't know how you feel about it.
You're talking about George Floyd's death.
George Floyd's death caused
his sacrifice, as Nancy Pelosi puts it.
However you want to kind of say it with that smile. Again, not what you say, how you say it.
That's just crazy. I'm saying it because it's morbidly comical to me. Just the way that
his sacrifice.
The way that politics will still talk about this event in a way that they're trying to seem compassionate, but it was really just kind of more it's more manipulative. They're just trying to take advantage of a situation to prop up their own selves.
The media, because
and politicians, he did not make a sacrifice. George Floyd would rather be alive today than dead.
Yeah. He was screaming that for about 9 minutes.
Exactly. So don't call it a sacrifice. He did not make a sacrifice, and I don't think, honestly, any rational person.
Here's the thing: just because because he'd rather be alive, it doesn't mean it wasn't a sacrifice.
I don't know. Sacrifices sound kind of.
I mean, to say that sacrifice only happens when you willingly do it,
I would say it does actually.
Yeah, you just sacrifice.
So someone okay.
That's a sacrifice they'll have to make.
So let's take the baby in the attic scenario. Like, is it okay to kill a crying baby if it's going to save you from all the Nazis? Like, the baby's not making a sacrifice. It's not even aware that's making a sacrifice, and for all intents and purposes, the baby just wants to be alive.
I would say the fact that whether or not somebody's aware that they're making a sacrifice
that's crazy, Lewis. Like, I mean, that's just crazy to me.
That people have to be aware that they're making a sacrifice. Yeah, I don't think that's insane.
I mean, you can sacrifice a person. You can make a choice to sacrifice somebody, but I don't think they're making a sacrifice. They're being coerced. That's not
being coerced.
Coerced, yeah. If you don't want to die for a cause, and so
it's still a sacrifice.
Yeah, for the people sacrificing that person, you're not sacrificing yourself.
Okay, you're not sacrificing yourself. It's still a sacrifice, man. If we want, let's look up
George Floyd's sacrifice.
What's that?
It's not George Floyd's sacrifice.
But it was though.
No, it wasn't.
All right, I feel like we're getting stuck on the actual Webster's definition of a sacrifice.
You mean the definition of the word, like what it means?
Yeah.
Everything I know, public school connoisseur. Lots of southern countries still have shutdowns in 2021. Where's all this coming? We've been missing a whole chat. What's going on with southern counties?
So first of all, it's like the most morbid way, and they're sacrifice.
Webster's has got to stop being so dark.
Right? No, but sacrifice in itself, right?
Okay.
Is just an act of slaughtering an animal or a person or surrendering a possession as an offering to a god or a divine supernatural figure. That's the biblical, and as a verb, it's offer or kill as a religious sacrifice.
That's the non-religious one?
Right. Well, again, it still says religious. So when people go into it, but here's the thing, an offer or a kill. He was killed.
Right. It was not a sacrifice. He didn't offer himself
Yes, it was.
Up.
By literal definition, an offer or a kill.
So
offer or kill. He was killed.
Lewis,
but no, go for it, because I feel like I'm an immovable object right now. Go for it.
Because what you're positing in that light by saying that is that if someone gets murdered, right, by somebody,
yeah,
and some good comes out of it, that person who was murdered made a sacrifice.
That's not at all what I'm saying.
That's what happened with George Floyd.
That's what happened here. That's not what I'm saying every time. You absolutely. So
what's the difference?
Absolutely no.
So what's the difference?
This time, the sacrifice being made. Look at the jumps that happen.
So once again, like I just said, if someone gets murdered and enough good comes from it, it's a sacrifice.
Okay.
You see the logic, right?
Right, but it's also okay. Also, you're blanket statementing to the
makes
term.
You feel more comfortable. I was maybe a little bit wrong about the stuff we were talking about earlier. Okay.
Okay. No. Here's the thing. I'm not even going to concede right now, because it's a real catch-22 right now, where you're just going like, every time some good happens from the death. No, but this specific time, I would say not every time.
But there has to be.
Right. Not every kill. Okay.
Not every kill, yeah, but there has to be some sort of logic, right? There has to be some sort of like definable like explanation so that if this happens again, we know how to recognize it. It can't be just an arbitrary, we decide to call it a sacrifice because we like it so much.
Okay.
That's not how words should really work, and that's also not how sacrifice should work, because what you're saying basically is history is decided by the winners, which is true, but I don't want to create a world where we're just actively saying like, well, we're just going to basically think the way we're told to think. George Floyd's death is a sacrifice because we're told it's a sacrifice because the community decided it's a sacrifice.
So help me understand. Help me understand here. Give me a little bit more of an example, like a kill that happens where good happens, and it's not a sacrifice.
Okay, well, I mean,
or it is a sacrifice.
I mean, 6 million Jews died, and now they're like basically, considered to be like, kings and princes, and there's all this benefit that's come out of that. Like, was that a sacrifice? People now realize that there's a lot of Jewish hate, and there's been a lot of like, movement towards like the Jewish community being like, supported and acknowledged. Like, would you call every person in the Holocaust who died, they made a sacrifice?
I would say, yeah, sadly they did.
They were a sacrifice to, I just feel like.
And that one's actually way more in the vein of a religious reason.
I guess I feel I see what I think I see the cognitive steps you're taking, and I understand them in a sense that these are sacrifices of history, but they're only sacrifices in light of the people who are in control.
I would say the sacrifice, and what makes it a sacrifice, is a literal change in
That's
I would
but that's
I would say
okay.
society or
we're
even
just arguing definitions.
well, sure, but
It's
I mean
semantics. I don't think in the most honest sense that was a sacrifice. In a sense that George Floyd, like, I guess, if you're looking at it from this outward perspective,
George Floyd would rather be alive. The Marine who jumps on a grenade for his platoon is making a sacrifice.
Let me put it this way. That's a truest sacrifice that exists. The sacrifice that we're talking about on George Floyd is more of
I think it was labeled.
It's more of a symbolic sacrifice in the sense that it's not he didn't go out that day being like, I'm going to, like, live my life and I'm going to die today to make sure we finally start to acknowledge the kind of abuse of power that the police system is enforcing. He was just trying to enjoy himself in his car and buy himself some groceries.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just kind of blown away, honestly. In the grander picture of things, because we as a culture want to be moving forward and we want to feel like we're always making leaps towards a greater good, it is seen as a noble sacrifice. We are honoring him, and that's fine. You want to honor him. That's my point. It's fine you want to honor him, but this argument that it was a sacrifice, maybe as a community we have sacrificed him. We've accepted him and let him go. But that to me is way broader and different. There's better ways to articulate
it's a little bit of a reach there, but I would say in that vein of, as a community, he was sacrificed grotesquely, if you want to think it.
And I guess that's my point. Is that I guess the word sacrifice is such a bizarre episode.
Well, here's the thing. I'll say this: you never. I would say you almost never have a sacrifice and go, that was pleasant.
No, but there's noble sacrifice. Like when we watch movies, for instance, the stories we tell, our idea of a sacrifice is somebody being like, I'm doing this because I want my life to mean something bigger than just me being alive.
Sure.
I'm doing something beyond my own self-preservation, and I want to do something I know is going to have a larger impact outside of my
the Christ-like sacrifice for sure.
Yeah,
but
sure,
I don't think.
Are we not making him into a martyr? Has he not become a
I would
martyr?
say he has borderline martyrdom. Yeah, to him.
Borderline?
Dude.
Borderline.
Yeah.
Have you seen, you can literally go to where he died now and people will baptize you.
All right. Well, that's actually kind of gross, but yeah.
Well, and I guess that's my argument that's a slippery slope of where using the term sacrifice in situations like this leads us. And that's what
leads us where?
To religious-like devotion, where we are basically baptizing people at his death site as a way of curing people of their sin or their guilt or their feeling of their need for meaning.
Okay.
I just calling it a sacrifice. I think it was just.
You think calling it a sacrifice literally leads to that, or that's a danger?
It's part of it's part of the move towards religious kind of devotion, and over the top. Mythology that we add to this situation that goes back to my whole reason why I was not moved by Chauvin being put in jail. What sacrifice for what? One guy put in jail who's probably going to be murdered in there for being a cop. What I would love to see, what I would love to have seen. I would have loved to actually talk about sacrifice. I would have loved to see the chief of police actually say that what Chauvin did was part of training and was part of the protocol, and that led to a larger investigation and a larger, maybe even court proceeding about whether or not the police department should be held liable for that man's death. Because that's the bigger problem, is that the way our police are trained, the way that our police organizations work, they have too much power. Now they know that they don't even have the safety of their own force to back them up, which might help them be more fearful, but it will also help them make them play ball more on the side of of the police.
So you think the chief lied then?
I do. I think he lied.
You think he lied? You think that's a training
I think from my experience with cops and from what I've seen, I don't think cops are treated to really consider your life. I don't think they're treated to really think about.
Right, but the chief specifically was talking about the knee hold.
Yeah, I know,
and you think he lied about that? You think that's a trained move where they're like, you can use? Here's the thing, I don't know. I don't know.
Let me put it this way: if he's not lying, then yes, the other three rookies should probably go to jail.
Tao is on the line for something else, and the other two rookies.
Then no,
the other two rookies are probably going to get plea deals because it was their second and fourth day out.
Sure. So I'll give the rookies, but Tao I don't give. My point is I rarely heard stories And granted, like I said, they are kind of like a mob-like family where they cover each other's asses. So
yeah, it's the Blue Shield or whatever it's called, the Blue Wall.
No, the Blue Shield, I think it's exactly
I think it's Blue Wall actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Blue Shield is way better.
Yeah. Put
Anyway,
that on there.
thank you. I've been watching him build this behind your back the whole entire time.
That's fun.
And it's sad that I work as hard as I do on the thumbnails and the logos for this site, but he knocked it out way better than I ever did. The fist scares me a little bit, but
oh, it's a white fist. You're all right.
Yeah, that's true.
I felt
that's
it fit. I felt it fit your personality on the pod.
Oh, so this is all about my personality.
Well, I mean, you definitely.
Oh no, I'm right there.
Yeah, you're the first name, dude.
I'm the pink in the bad handwriting.
What was I saying? Yeah, like I was just I don't know. I didn't even want to really talk about this because I just feel like I guess I'm just so disappointed.
Here's the thing. Like, you brought it up, Shiki, where it was like slow news week, nothing happened. I'm like, really? You're gonna make me bring it up? And I'm glad it came up because
it's just like I'm just sick and tired of people talking about whether or not Chauvin go to jail. I really, really don't care, to be honest. Also, first of all, I'm a big proponent of like not police reform, but mostly prison reform.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way that we do just said all we want to do is see more and more people thrown into like into a cell.
See,
don't get me wrong, a man who murders somebody should have like be put
right. I was gonna say at your like most,
but I really
almost reptilian take on this trial. It's you have a very cold you have a very cold take on it where you said you were numb to the outcome and you're looking at it as just a guy who killed a guy.
Because I want to see a system that is affecting the greater,
right?
Like
and you don't think that's going to happen from this?
No, I don't.
Not at all.
No, I don't. I don't see how what has happened has in any way started conversations about policy, police reform, police oversight. I'm not going to take the word of a police chief saying like we're gonna do a better job to make sure that our guys are.
So explain to me in this trial how you think it could have gone better to make better reform.
I guess that's my point. The trial is all just a show. I don't care about the trial as much. The trial was not as important.
But you're talking about the police chief saying what he should have said, and then we would have had a grandiose thing. You clearly did care.
I would have liked the trial a lot more. I would have cared more about the trial if the police said that, and it actually led to us being like, okay. Is that not a problem?
Mm-hmm.
Is that not a problem that a police chief says like, well, yeah, from what we do,
I think you are. I think the thing is, people are saying that, and I think whether or not
people are saying that, but I don't see it being pushed in the media. I don't see it being pushed by politics. All I hear is thank God. I mean, thank God for this man's what do you call it?
I mean, it just settled, and it just. I think,
know, but I've seen a lot of cases now come and go about these big.
What other cases?
Stuff like that.
What other big cases like this one about police reform have really been up since maybe Rodney King?
Well, you're right. We have had policemen on trial a bunch of. Well, Rodney King was a good example right there. I mean, but how long has it been since then?
20 years almost.
And now we're pretty much right back where we started, right?
Wouldn't you say things should have changed then? And the other thing with Rodney King,
and I don't want to be 20 years from now saying things should have changed again. Do you understand my frustration?
Yeah, and what's hilarious to me is you're expressing the same frustration that the people that are really having trouble with the cops right now are explaining.
Right. I feel for people who are. I feel for the people who are still alive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, I feel for the family. Although my brothers died and give me $20 million, I would be okay.
It's actually kind of a fun. As sick as it is, my comedy brain will kick in, and I played this game before.
Not comedy, just like come on.
Before the George Floyd incident,
how much,
yeah, my mom and I would always be like, "How much for one of us to go?" And we're all like, "If you were on a jet plane, it's like." How much would Delta have to pay out? Where you're like, well, I wish we had them, but
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've got a really my siblings I really like, but my parents, like, I could let one of them go for a few 20 mil. Yeah, honestly, I love you, Dad. I love you, Mom. But let's be honest. The only reason why my dad wouldn't do it to me is he doesn't need the money.
It's a good thing you don't have a twin brother and your last name's Menendez.
Menendez? I don't actually know the reference.
It's another pretty big court case.
Oh yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, look, I
know the Menendez brothers?
I do feel the frustration. I am upset about what happened. You know me. A year ago, I got arrested, and I don't feel like, although you technically got me on like the law, I felt like I was rolled over.
Sure.
And granted, I wasn't held to the ground. I wasn't like, I mean, I did fear for my life in a lot of ways because I realized like I'm in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
and these cops can literally do whatever they want to me,
Yep.
and there's pretty much no recourse for it.
Yep.
And that is a scary barrel to be looking down.
Yeah.
But
I
there's
think,
people who have
I mean,
far
sit on that
worse.
for a second. There's a disenfranchised black population that's been screaming about
Okay,
that
okay.
for a long time.
Honestly, at this point, take race out of it because
Yeah.
I talk to all types of people.
Yeah.
Mexican, Asian, white. They
That's
all
fine,
have problems
but
with
I
police.
mean, we have racial problems in this country. Sometimes you do have to talk about it.
They cops kill and murder people out of like aggression and just like poor policemanship of all colors. To me, is it at a higher rate one versus the other? Sure, but is it gonna make me feel better? It's like, well, guess what? This year, finally, not one black person was killed by a cop. It's like, well, they're still killing other people. So like, let's not focus on color.
Yeah,
right
but
now.
you had a lot going on in what you just said there, where I'm like, oh, let's stop and unpack some of that. Because it's like
Unpack what? The
they're
fact
not
that
going
I-
to
that-
stop
the
killing
fact-
all black people. That's not what that's not what.
Well, you're the one who brought up color and race,
right,
Right.
yeah.
I'm just talking about the way police conduct themselves with people.
Right,
So
right.
what is a more like succinct way of approaching the problem?
Which problem?
The problem. Well, okay.
With a racial problem with police? The fact that
I think the bigger problem is let's
because we do have a policing problem.
Okay, let's
for
say,
sure.
let's say there are two problems. Let's say there's a problem that police are racist, and let's say
I wouldn't
say there's
say
a problem that police are also just
okay.
their
First
power.
of all, the blanket statement that police are racist,
So
I'm
what-
not going to subscribe to.
Okay, so
like
what-
we're unpacking a lot. Let's stay on and
Okay.
And really address
So
every
what were-
point.
What were you bringing up the color of the people's
So
skin for?
I would say, outspokenly, the
Uh-huh.
black community in this country for years, decades, I don't know how long,
Mhm.
has been very vocal and adamant about being mistreated, specifically by law enforcement
Yeah,
agencies.
they have been.
We also can see that you brought up prison reform. You can see that in convictions and trials and time served. Again, another the Justice Department in total is being pretty one-sidedly heavy-handed,
Yeah.
and I think nobody's denying that.
Okay.
And then when it comes specifically to policing issues, right? And we'll go back to your anecdotal example of you fearing for your life. And no, you don't want
You
to?
can if you want
I mean,
to.
I'm just saying, like you felt that, and it's like, all right, but you walked away more or less fine. You still clearly it mentally is up there. Like you're
Right.
gonna remember that for a
Sure.
while. That's gonna be, a
Well, it's going to
thing.
prepare me next time I
But-
deal with a police officer to make sure that I'm a lot more vigilant about what I'm doing in the situations I get myself into.
Sure. That's a different conversation. How to conduct yourself to
Right, I'm just-
with a guy or a person with a
All
gun
I'm
and a
saying-
badge is a
all I'm
different
saying
conversation.
My issue is
Mhm.
with the way the police have unlimited power to
Right.
act in authoritarian ways
Right.
with little to no recourse
Right.
or oversight.
Okay, I agree with you on all
That
of
goes
that.
beyond race.
But here's the thing: another
what-
layer
Right,
to it.
right.
More so than not, as a white person, all the things you're scared about,
Yeah.
you have a better chance of being okay.
Okay. Even more to that?
To the point where I would say everything, the power, you're scared of it, all that. Yeah, I mean, and then
Okay, so my issue
Mhm.
that I'm bringing up to the table right now is that I think the police have way too much power
right,
to act aggressively
Yep.
towards people,
yes,
and that we need to have more oversight
mm-hmm.
over the police force,
Yep.
and they obviously have to change their ways.
Yep, and
And now you're telling me is
I'll take it
you're-
one
and what I'm
step
hearing from you
further,
is
yeah.
the problem is that you're saying the problem is that black people are a lot more scared in America than white people.
I would say yeah.
Those are two very different
But
problems.
no, here's the thing: I want to take everything you just
and
said.
I would argue
everything
if
you
solve
just
my
said.
problem, you help that your problem a little bit.
What's that? No, everything you just said makes sense,
Right.
and I just take it one step further. Where everything
No,
you're
that's
scared
not one
of,
step further. That's literally a totally different conversation.
it's in the same vein.
Your
Your problem with everything
my
the
problem
policing, right?
helps your problem.
Right. Here's the thing. Everything you just brought up about the police and the problem with the policing that goes on here, right?
Right.
Then take it just a little bit further, where there's because you said all colors, all people, right?
Right.
But then there's a certain sect of people. So go be into the people category of what we're talking about, and then look at it, be like, okay, there's different groups of people, and this group of people are being affected even more so by everything you brought up.
Right. But right. So what is but so yeah, Okay, so what's your point?
My point being is that
Blacks have it worse than whites. Okay.
Yeah, that's
in
okay.
in a
That's
lot of different fields.
Yeah,
In a lot of different fields.
Yep.
We build a country
mm-hmm.
that gave them a very bad start,
Yep.
and therefore they are born with worse cards than other people.
Typically, I would say typically, yeah, as to not be like all the time, but
That's
yeah, I would say statistically,
that's overall. That's a different problem.
Yeah, we got a lot of them, but I would say this is still within that vein.
What do you mean in that
we
vein?
have a lot of problems to work with.
There's a Venn diagram where they overlap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Are you saying we should only focus on the overlap and make sure and work towards getting those circles as separate as possible, or should we work on getting rid of one of the circles?
Okay, so what you're talking about is if we have the proper police reform.
I'm asking. I would
right. I'm trying to pick up what you said because if you separate the Venn diagram, sure.
Is that what you want to do? Do you want to work on pulling the circles further apart?
I don't think this is that's not an apt metaphor, man. I'm not
an apt metaphor. I'm talking about police reform. You're saying you're talking about racism, basically.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I'm also talking about yes, there needs to be police reform, and one of the things needs to be
or marginalization.
What's that?
Or marginalization. You're talking
right. Marginalization or you know, you brought up racism when you said, you know, police are racist. I'm like, no, not all police. Some police are racist. And something you bring up
Maybe
a lot
some
of
people are.
Right. Something you bring up a lot is some people are racist. Some people are, everybody's racist to a degree.
Yeah.
Something you bring up. Sure. But what I'm saying is as we're going, right? Yeah. Right now, and kind of going back full circle to the Derek Chauvin thing and the end of the trial, where, you know, you were saying you don't think the best possible outcome happened because Derek Chauvin was
I didn't say I don't think the best obstacle happened. I just don't feel like I don't feel confident. And I know there's obviously vocal pundits that agree with me that, like, I don't feel confident that this is leading to actual change. And I would argue your conflation and your inability to focus on one problem or the other is part of that mess.
I'd say it's an overlapping problem, though.
So
going back to your Venn diagram,
you want to work on pulling the circles apart as much as possible.
Give me the circles
because
and then the overlap.
Will still exist.
So are you talking about racism?
There's
problem in the police force and racism, and then problems in the police force?
Just make a circle of like the things that we both said. Yeah. There's your circle, which is that black people are a lot more afraid for their lives than white people in this country.
In a policing situation, yeah.
But
I'm specifically talking about a policing situation
fine. So okay. Your problem is black people are more afraid of police than white people, right?
Generally speaking, and statistically,
your circle. And my circle is that police are corrupt and basically are not have no oversight and no kind of recourse for their actions that, you know, makes them act in a way that supports the community.
Right.
Okay. Those kind of overlap, obviously, because one does cause the other a little bit, right?
So what's the overlapping section, though, where the two circles meet?
Does it matter how much? That's both of them, right?
Yeah, but when you have the Venn diagram, you're talking about corrupt police and black people being afraid of the corrupt police.
Okay, so the overlap is George Floyd, is black people basically being, like, abused by the police.
Okay.
Right?
I'll give you that.
Right? Because outside of that diagram is just white people or Asians or Mexicans, and outside of them, the other circle is just the black people, is just the fear they feel. Because those black people feel fear, they're not always every day under duress. So some black people go their whole lives.
So I already know where you're going.
Don't ask me where I'm going because I want to know your answer. So how do you know where I'm going?
If you fix the policing part of the circle, you're saying that the other thing automatically is fixed.
No, I don't.
No,
I think there's still because you can still have fear of something that doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I'm saying the fear. But it seems like to me is what you're saying is you keep focusing on that middle part, and the only way to get rid of the middle part is to separate the circles. You can't just remove the middle part and the circles don't overlap.
To separate the circles, to separate corrupt policing and the fear of. No, I would say if you fix the police departments. Sure, that's the point that I was like, that's where you're going. If you fix the police departments, you stop the middle part,
right? So why bring up the race in it all the time?
Because it's a race-based middle part. The middle part that needs fixing is a race part.
So all you care about getting rid of is the middle part.
No, that's not what I said either.
Okay.
I'm just saying it's a part. It's a part of it. And
I mean, we don't want the Venn diagram to exist at all.
And here's the thing, right? I would say this. No other community has really been outspoken about police reform really needing to happen outside of minority communities that are disproportionately abused by the police.
Sure.
I would say that's a huge factor of what brought up police reform.
Group that's most abused by a power
Right,
is
but
going to be the one
how often did you think about police reform before really disenfranchised minority groups were like, hey, like we need to fix this?
Oh, since I started driving. Since
cops pulled you over, and
since
like,
I
really
started actually
interacting
interacting with cops,
Yeah.
I was just like, God, these guys are just, and then obviously the more stories I heard,
right. But do you not
the more
see
videos I've seen with just different types of people.
Right.
Thank you, Zach, for drawing
there
just
it
I love
Whites, Asians, Mexicans just chilling out here.
but
Okay.
I love Zach because this is what I'm saying. He's such a good comic. On one hand, we got black people afraid of cops in a circle, and then the other circle is corrupt ? Police.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even sure they're corrupt, but do we want to get rid of the police? And then there's George Floyd and many others. I agree in the center. And yeah, that's my that's thanks for this actually. So my point is that
And
like
on the outside, you have
Yeah, I see that.
whites,
Asians and Mexicans.
Well, I misspelled Mexicans, but yeah.
Mexians.
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 Nice. That's a good look.
Okay, so this is our problem, though, right? Like we got this Venn.
Yeah, I'd actually say, Erickson, yes, your Venn diagram is very much our problem.
Well, like,
I would 100% say this is our problem.
So my point is, like, we okay. So we wish that.
I love that you're trying to you're using a Venn diagram for a system. I love this is incredible.
This is how you talk about
Yeah.
things. You need to visualize.
Yeah,
it.
we got to visualize.
Well, how should we talk about it?
I thought we were doing just fine until you brought up literally 2 circles and separating lines.
Well, you need abstractions in order to understand what we're
talked about
talking
the
about.
outside of the video.
Yeah, you can tell there's a lot going on out there.
Yeah, well, okay. So
Hey, Zach, pull up my bar graph about how disenfranchised people feel about being abused by the police. You got that?
All right, I'm on it.
All right, thank you.
I mean, I think it is funny, but it also seems like you're dismissing these arguments based on the fact
where
that
you're
I've got,
coming
like,
from.
that we're using data and
Our data?
Well,
Look
well,
at
well,
me.
well, we're
Zach,
using-
pull up our data again.
you're saying the graph. You said you want to bring out a graph.
I was being cheeky.
Okay,
I was being a
okay.
son of a bitch there.
Okay.
But I liked our data. That was a good
My
visual
point is
representation.
the visualization of like what we're talking about
Yeah.
here. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we can have fun and just joke about
Well,
it. Or do you want to like talk about it seriously?
No, we can go back and forth. The joking about the graphs is hilarious, and I would like to come back to that. But going back to your point about when you were younger and you're like, oh, these fucking something needs to happen with these cops, right? I would say, sure. I think a lot of people felt like that, but it took a level of abuse to a certain minority group of people that it's been so outspoken that you're now actually seeing change.
What are you, Lewis? I'm not
Okay.
denying
No,
this.
no, go ahead.
I'm not denying your point of view. I just don't understand the point that you're making.
The point that I'm making is specifically right now. Like
Or
when
specifically,
I'm
like-
going off your anecdotal, like you got pulled over when you were 16,
Like I
you
said-
don't like the cops, and you were like, we
you
need to
asked,
change
you,
this.
you said to me, when did you start like thinking
Right,
cops
right,
gave us
and
power?
that's hey man, I feel for you, and I'm not taking away anything you feel about the cops and how they needed to be reformed, and you're like they have too much power, all that. I'm 100% with you on that because I agree.
Okay.
Right, I think a lot of people did.
Okay.
But the sad fact is, and I was going to do a callback to the sacrifice here that I knew you would
go ahead.
fucking hate.
Go ahead.
But no, the sad fact is that it took,
the sacrifice of
racial minority groups. It took
sacrifice.
yeah, it took a sad sacrifice of racial minority groups who disproportionately were abused at even higher levels by the same amount of power.
Took the deaths of millions upon millions of Jews for people to finally realize there was a Holocaust going on.
Okay, sure.
It's
First of all, I talk about. I was gonna say I don't even think this is an apples to oranges example of the Holocaust versus police brutality. But if you want to go down there, I'll try and legitimize it. I don't want to,
all
but
I'm hearing you're saying is that like the argument you seem like you're making now is like, sure, these problems exist, but it's sad that it took us so long to figure it out. And it's
sure.
just like,
what's
okay.
wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with bringing it up, but it's like, okay.
Hang on, but
Okay.
what do you mean? It's sad that it took so long for us to realize.
No, I'm just saying that seems to be the point you're bringing up.
No, it's not.
Okay.
My point being that you were talking about how race and color doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't. But it legitimately
What? No, I never said that.
when it came, okay, my bad.
I said
you
my
said
problem. That's where we start here, is
race
that-
doesn't
is that-
matter in the policing problem.
No, I didn't say race doesn't matter.
Okay,
I
what
just
then?
said
What are you
if-
saying?
I said the thing that I would like to see fixed, the thing that I think needs to be addressed,
Right.
is basically policing.
Right, but going back when I brought up disenfranchised minority
was asking
groups,
why did you bother bringing
you
up
specifically
ordering
said I don't think color matters or race matters. You said that
I
earlier
don't
when
see-
we
I
were
don't see why-
talking.
I don't see why you have to bring that up because
Right.
it's-
Well,
it's
I'm
a moot
bringing it up
point.
right now because the reform you want to see happen from the police, right? The main drive for that is because of a disenfranchised group of people that have been overly abused
So-
by that power to finally actually start the cause of that change.
So you're saying because of a certain group of people,
Yes.
we are now having a conversation about this bigger problem.
Yes.
So okay.
That
Yes.
certain group
Should
of
we
people
give them
is
a-
racially it
Should
matters.
we give them an award? What do you want to do?
No, how are you not picking up? Make the connection
say-
I'm saying here.
What is it?
You
Just say it.
said that race and color shouldn't matter with this police problem.
As
but
far
I'm
as
saying
fixing it, yes.
yeah,
It
but
should be a
I'm
policy that's
but right. But what
overarching.
I'm saying is a certain group of people that have been abused so much are the first movers in actually fixing something here
Well,
because they've been
definitely they're
abused so much more.
Okay, and what's
And that matters because without the abuse, right? Without a certain again disproportionately abused group of people, I don't think you'd see that reform you want.
So do you want me to say thank you? Thank
No,
you.
dude,
Thank you to
this
the
isn't
people who did
about
it.
you. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, I'm acknowledging
You-
you're right. If there wasn't a marginalized group of people, if there wasn't a vocal amount of
Right.
people talking about this,
Right.
whether they're the most abused or not,
Right.
if there wasn't a vocal amount of people talking
Yes.
about this, then we wouldn't be talking about it.
Yep.
But the problem exists. We are talking about it.
Right. Because of
What do you want me to say? The blacks?
Be-
Like, what do you? Okay, because of
not
because,
like that.
because
but there
of
you
because
go.
of people.
Because of how you're okay. Go back. Put it back together. You put it
Okay,
together, and
so-
now you're
so-
being
so-
willfully ignorant
Oh,
at this
willfully
point
ignorant.
again.
Okay, willfully ignorant about what, Lewis? About what? Yes, we have a narrative now where
Right.
like
Okay, I guess
people were
the
speaking
obstacle
out
the,
about
the
the
obstacle
problem.
point we're talking about right now is when I brought up
what am I not
race,
acknowledging?
with the race,
That black people get murdered by cops at a higher rate than white people? Absolutely, I agree. That's true.
per capita.
That it's a
Per
basically, that
capita.
it's
I'll tell you
per-
right now
per
because I've heard
capita.
tons of people say more white people are killed by cops, and yeah, the statistics are true on that.
Let's just
But
say
the
that
obstacle
they're
point here-
unjustly treated by the police more than white people are, and
Right.
that there is a cultural understanding that they are more
Right.
fearful and distrusting of police than white.
My point being is what brought up your Venn diagram we went to was when we were talking about the problem with policing and specifically the George Floyd case and the verdict and why I think it's a bigger deal is I was the one that when we talked about the problem with policing, I brought up race and racial issues, and you were like, no, the cops are overly policing everybody and it needs to change.
It's just
Right,
interesting,
but when
yeah.
I brought up race, you were like, why does that matter? And I'm explaining to you right now why it matters.
You didn't even know about it, but
We knew about it, but because of a certain race or people that have been abused by that power more so, and at a disproportionate level, the bounce back and the cause for the change that you want to happen wasn't started or propagated by white people saying, oh, we need to stop this. This is
Okay.
bad. It started because, again, fellow citizens, but a different race group
started
being-
this.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
so they
reform
started this
movement you
movement. Okay.
want.
Okay.
That's why
That's why you
race.
brought it up?
That's why race
So
matters in
that's
this
why- that's
policing
why you-
issue.
that's why
Yes.
you just want to make a shout out to the blacks for bringing this up.
What's that?
You just want to give a shout out to the black people for bringing
You
this up.
see, I wouldn't say like that. Why are you saying it like
Because
that?
that's what I'm hearing. Is like you literally.
Okay, you're obtuse level. Yeah, shout out to the black community.
You know what it is? You're
Yeah.
virtue signaling. That's why.
Am I?
Yeah,
Am
because-
I?
because
How am
you're-
I virtue signaling?
Because
How
because
did
we're
I not
talking-
make enough logical points for
because
you?
you're talking about an issue and your only argument about bringing up race was like, just so you know, we wouldn't even know about it if it wasn't for them. It's like, okay, great.
That's because for whatever reason you weren't even gonna acknowledge.
Why do I have to? Unless I want people to acknowledge I know.
You didn't say you knew. This
Why
whole
do I have to
fucking
know?
time,
Why
you
do I have
knew,
to
and
know
you
why,
made me
why
talk
do,
for an
why
hour.
do I have to? Why do I have to argue why I know? Why the problem
Are
is
you
this?
actually playing devil's advocate for an hour with me?
What do you mean?
This whole time, I'm trying to explain it to you, and you go, "Oh, I knew the whole time."
Knew what the whole time? The blacks were the reason why we know about police brutality?
No, the reason that we're actually getting reform, and the reason that
I don't
race
believe we're
actually
getting
matters.
reform. I don't believe we're actually getting reform. That's why I started saying this.
The movement towards reform, yes, that's what we were talking about. Now, whether or not we have had the reform, that's yet to be seen. Sure,
Right, and I'm just saying I don't feel confident we're going to see it.
that's not what we were talking about the whole time.
What were we talking about?
You tell me.
I thought what I brought up was how I basically was just not impressed by this result of this courtroom.
Right.
I was not
Because
hopeful
of?
because we're sending a man to prison, and it's like that's great. And
Right,
I'm glad
but
that a man
you
is gonna
said-
is going to like have to pay for his crimes.
Right, but you said it would have mattered more if the police chief would have said something.
I would have
because
liked
then we
it.
would have seen police
I would have
reform.
liked. I wouldn't say we would have. I would have felt more hopeful
Mhm.
if he had said that, and
Yeah.
if him saying that, which I don't believe this would have happened either, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
If him saying that had led to them being like, well, then let's put the fucking police on trial.
Okay.
That's what I would love to see. I want to see the police.
Did you
force
not
on
see the
trial.
police on trial?
I saw policeman on trial.
Okay.
That's not the police, dude.
Okay.
That's one man. That's a sacrificial lamb.
Okay.
He made a sacrifice for the police department. The
Did he?
sacrifice-
What was the sacrifice for the
They
police department?
sacrificed him
Mhm.
to make sure that they don't take any more further blame.
Okay.
That they don't lose any more
Yeah,
buildings. that they
I'll
don't
give you
pick
that.
up- Right.
Sure.
And I don't like that. I don't like the fact that the system still stands. I'd rather, I don't, it's not enough for me as a person. I know what he did was wrong.
Mhm.
And I do believe that he needs to be punished for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I see a man who's acting in a system
Mm-hmm.
that is enabling that kind of behavior
Yeah.
that I think will continue.
Mm-hmm.
I really just- I
I'm right
really-
there with you.
No, I'm
just keep
I'm
going.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying what I really feel, dude. I really do feel like it'll continue, and it'll be a while till we see some really like healthy change in the
Right.
police behavior.
Yeah.
The way
I
that they
agree
treat
with you
people.
on all of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where I come from. And
Yeah.
I don't think race has to do with it because I've seen it.
See, and that's where we have our difference. I'm like, yeah, I think race does matter and have to do with
so
it.
if you stop seeing them hurting mostly black people and they just only hear white people, it's okay.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
So it has nothing to do with race.
It does have to do with race, yes.
Okay, I don't understand what
so,
it does.
So okay, keep explaining to me because
All I'm saying is
every time you say if they only hurt white people, I'm like you always
I
bring it back.
see-
If they only hurt white people,
Well, because you say
blah, blah,
race
blah.
has nothing to do with it, and I don't see what it has to do with it unless you're saying like we need to stop them from hurting races unequally.
Okay, so my whole thing about bringing up the race again and
I just want
the reform
accountability.
and the change you want.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I want accountability.
everybody wants the accountability, right? But the first movement is because it has gone so rampant, right? The brutality. Let's just use the
First
blanket.
movement.
Police brutality has gone
Uh-huh.
so far and extreme on specifically, for the example we've been talking about, the black community in this country, that the movement, the first spark movement that has really gained steam to be like, oh yeah, we should work on some sort of police reform, conversations actually being had, legislations being introduced, happened
What legislation
because
was
of this.
introduced?
There's all kinds of new chokehold legislation being introduced, new holding and grappling techniques being introduced,
that's-
training exercises
That's
being
nice.
introduced.
That's nice.
The new proposal with taser training because of the most
So there's-
recent.
They're gonna color code
yeah.
them differently. They're gonna make them different shapes now.
That's already a problem. Evidently, some police
No,
need help with left and right.
Right.
So yeah, tasers on the left,
Oh Christ.
non-dominant
messed
side
up.
actually.
Look, and you know what? Honestly, like we're both just like talking. I mean, you might know cops better than I do, but like I don't have a full understanding of like what the police like training system is and what the different levels are.
Dude, I'm friends with a lot of cops,
Right.
Which is this is a tough conversation for me to have. But I look them dead in the face all the time, and I'm like, "How do you feel about this?"
What do they say?
The mixed bag. A lot of them thought Derek Chauvin didn't kill him, and I know that's a stance you have as well. And
No, well, like I said, I don't even think it matters anymore. Whether I think his actions definitely lead to his death.
okay, because a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking, and I'm not trying
I
to
don't-
throw
I
you
don't-
out
I-
on this.
I
You
might-
did bring up the fentanyl.
The
Being
fentanyl
the thing
definitely
that
had
killed.
a part in it too.
But the thing is, there was such a minuscule amount that
Well,
that
that's the
both
thing. That's the thing. Now,
both
now,
health advisors
now,
said it
now,
didn't.
there's apparently there's an argument that there was a lot in his body, but also the argument that and this was before I saw the drug report of how much was in the pills.
Yeah.
The amount of pills was very limited. So now I'm like, well, which one's true? How can he have
Right.
so much in his system unless he
Well,
swallowed 28 pills?
Now you're it's a garbled up thing that had to be figured out in the courts because it's like now you're coming to like what's true,
But
what's
more
not.
I
I'm like,
thought
don't know,
about it,
man.
the more I
Like,
thought
that's
about
why
it.
there's a trial.
But here's the thing though. Like I said, the more like either way, I might have felt like it's partly like I said, the whole entire situation's a mess.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And when I thought about like whether or not he is the reason he died, I was like, okay, I mean that's That's obviously something we should look into.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll never. It seems like we'll never truly know because the whole entire situation's been politicized
Well,
so
that's
much.
the horrific nuance of this death.
Right. So
right?
the question
the
I
trial
walk, so
did
the
say he was guilty, and I you know.
And I said from the beginning, manslaughter, definitely true. I said that if they argue
Mhm.
that he was under training, he'll probably get off.
Right.
They didn't. And I was surprised by that. But then again, I thought about the amount of pressure that's been put on this case
Okay.
and the amount of already the amount of disaster we've seen come from the whole entire incident
Yeah.
and basically the threats of there being further disaster if it goes one way. That I'm like, well, you know what? The police force might have been like, you know what? We don't feel like having to leave our own building. So we'll throw this man under the bus.
I'll tell you right now, right? Everything we brought up, and you made a very good point that I did want to bring up about, Chauvin as a sacrifice to the police force. I thought that was a brilliant. I'm dead ass. I'm with you on this. Like when you said that, I was like, I'm gonna pocket that because I do want to come back to it. And I jokingly was like, man, if Derek Chauvin is the police force's story of a hurricane, and when they listen to Bob Dylan, they're like, that's our guy, he's our hurricane. I'm like, okay, that's a bastardization of the song,
There
but sure.
probably are
but
people. I mean, you said.
Hang. Yeah.
Just to kind of full circle that, OG Yondo said that it sounded like choices needed for a sacrifice. Something tells me Derek Chauvin did not choose to be a sacrifice for the police department.
Right.
But he was just referred to as a sacrificial lamb for them.
Right.
That's my.
Right. And then Erickson's point about George Floyd not wanting to die, and he was chosen to be.
Both were sacrifices, and neither of them chose to be sacrifices.
Right, and I mean that's
Right, but
that's
that-
OG
that-
Yondo
but that's-
saying.
but
that,
no,
yeah.
no, that supports my argument that they did not choose to be sacrifices. They were sacrifices by their community, and I feel like we need to distinguish one between the other. George Floyd doesn't feel good about his sacrifice, and neither does Derek Chauvin.
Here's the
Neither
thing.
of them feel very
I
good
don't
about
want
their
to get hung
sacrifice.
up on the
Me
English
neither.
language of sacrifice again because again I would say I agree with you, but when Abraham went to go kill his son, the son didn't see himself as a sacrifice either, even though he fucking was. In the biblical sense of what a sacrifice is, you can choose to be a sacrifice, or you are offered up as a sacrifice.
Let me be clear.
Yeah.
It is noble for someone to sacrifice himself.
Absolutely.
It is not noble for a community to sacrifice another person who does not want to.
I'll give you that.
So there's no.
I'll give you
So
that.
what Nancy Pelosi is saying is not a noble.
Yeah, I'll
act.
give you that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's what's infuriating.
It's-
Don't,
I mean-
don't try to sell this as like he did something noble. He didn't.
I would say they're trying to paint it as something.
She literally said, hopefully
and
he'll be happy about his sacrifice. Hopefully he would be happy.
Yeah, Nancy
No.
Pelosi's she's a fucking zombie, and I'll give
Disagree
you
with
that.
me when I said that. Then.
Yeah, but that's not what I was on about. We were talking
Okay.
about the actual definition of
Okay.
sacrifice. If you want to talk about Nancy Pelosi's a witch doctor, I
Yeah.
can go into with that, no problem. And I do want to go back to the point you made about the police force, and I here's something that I was genuinely shocked
Yeah.
about. That blue wall or the blue shield that does not exist, and I put
Well, it
that in
definitely
quote.
does. I don't know.
Right, that's why I was putting the quote. I'm like, that's the one time you didn't pick up on me being cheeky as fuck.
Well, I saw you did the quote, but I don't.
Right,
I don't
right,
even wanna,
right,
like talking
right,
about jokes. Like, I
right.
don't even want to pretend.
Right.
Like that's
Hey,
something that like
I'll give you that. But here's
groups protect their own.
here's absolutely.
Cops are no different.
Absolutely. And here's what I got anecdotally from my few cop buddies, right? But they were on trial there. It's not the locker room trial, it's the real trial. It's not kangaroo court.
It's not even about kangaroo court. It's about
Right.
knowing what's at stake for what you
Right.
say.
Here's what I'll tell you from an anecdote from a guy I love and respect.
Yeah.
Right? Police officer that I swear to God, he's looked out for me. He's a good dude. They were back ordered on tear gas. The country as a whole was having
Who was back ordering tear gas? Oh,
law enforcement
Your
aid-
friend's law enforcement.
No,
agency.
when I asked him, I was like, "You guys," and he's like, "No," because there's the Justice Department.
Well, maybe they didn't use so much
No.
of it during the initial
right.
fucking.
But the Justice Department, the memos went out where it was like, yeah, every department is requesting more riot gear and suppression stuff.
oh wait,
and-
how long ago was this?
What I'm telling you is it's about the Chauvin case where it's like, yeah, they were like, I think to a degree, if you want to talk about some conspiratorial shit,
Yeah.
I think maybe, and I didn't watch the whole goddamn thing, right? And I do believe that Derek Chauvin did kill George Floyd, and I do believe it was manslaughter for sure. But I think also the powers to be were like, hey, these cities will burn and this country will burn
Yeah.
if that guy walks.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, then
That's not a That's and
It's
that's not a
horrific,
good
but
legal system.
here's
if we're just folding to populism.
right. But here's the thing: I believed that, but I also believed that he was guilty of manslaughter, and
I guess, and that's why I said I think the manslaughter.
and what else did they
was
get him? Murder 2
Murder
and
2,
something
which,
else.
as I talk to people, there seems to be like I thought Murder 2 was a crime of passion. I thought that
Nope.
was murdering without the initial intent, but in the moment trying to kill somebody. Murder 1 I thought was I'm going out to kill somebody.
Right, that's Murder 1. Murder
Okay, so
Murder
Murder
2
2
and Murder 3 are a little but Murder 2 is, and I think the argument they made for it as the prosecution was that within that time frame where he was on his neck, that's where it went from manslaughter to Murder 2, because the argument made there was
and you know what sealed that?
what's that?
Police chief saying that we don't train them to do that.
Right.
Because
I believe
now
that.
it's no
Yeah.
longer I'm just doing what we've always done to hold down a perp.
Right.
Now it's I just like keep this guy down. And honestly, both could be true. I think
Yeah.
cops really enjoy holding people down. And dude, Chauvin could face up to 40 years in prison for second-degree murder, up to 25 years for third-degree murder, and up to 10 years for so he also got third-degree too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We give him so many degrees.
Well, I mean, that's
gonna
just
guess-
prosecution throwing what they can. You know. That's,
Oh yeah,
that's
no.
loading
And
up.
honestly, and there I saw a write-up about the prosecutor. Hey, props to him. This is like one of his few cases he's ever done, and he got every single one of his claims, every one of his convictions. So, I mean, But then again, the question is, did they do a good job of arguing the case, or was it public opinion? And you know, we'll debate that forever. All I'm saying is that like. Chauvin going to jail. Okay, nice visual, nice optic. But and I saw a lot of people
I
saying
also
this.
believe it was justice done. though. You're saying nice optic, but I mean, if you believe the manslaughter alone,
But okay. This goes back to when we talked along before. I was like saying, well, we don't have to. We shouldn't care if a shooting was racist or not. We should just care about the shooting. But no, every crime needs to be acknowledged.
right?
Well, if we're giving fake crimes just to trump up charges, that's not the system working.
Right,
either.
but I don't subscribe to those fake crimes.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to him?
Because you agreed that it's manslaughter at the least.
But there's still other 2 crimes that he'll be serving for.
right,
And that'll be
Murder 2 and Murder 3.
That'll be
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think in the court of law, with the case they had, the prosecution made a good enough argument that Murder 2 and Murder 3 stuck.
I'd have to know better about what the definition of Murder 2 and Murder 3 is. It seems a little bit crazy that we have Murder 2 and Murder 3, and you can get both of them.
It's yeah. I mean, I would say that to me, I would yield to a lawyer or somebody like a judge.
Like
Be
I said,
like,
I don't know enough.
how? Because I'm like,
sound a little bit like, so why do
I think it's by definition,
not
and it's the
know
loophole that
enough
it's 2
about-
different definitions
Sure,
that they can just tack them on.
And this goes back to the and I'm not trying to stick on the point, but this goes back to the whole sacrifice thing, and even like and the law thing. Like I might not be a genius, but I do see a value in distinctions.
Yeah.
So that we can.
Oh, clearly you
understand-
brought up some good ones earlier.
Right, so we can understand what it is we're saying as a community, because a lot of words at the end of the day are just shorthands for ideas and thoughts.
Right.
Hence why you'll bring up a Venn diagram to try to explain what you're talking about. And I think we take a lot of these words for granted more and more so often that 2 different people can hear the idea of someone making a sacrifice and take 2 very different meanings from it. Whereas if we just came up with new words for like the sacrifice of a group and the sacrifice of a person, there wouldn't be as much gray area.
Right.
And when you do that in a court of law, where it's like, well, you can do both Murder 1 and Murder 2 and Murder 3 at the same time. It's like, okay, well, explain to me how, because that gets kind of messy if you're just creating ways for us to throw more and more accusations at somebody. I'd like to imagine every crime could be unique. That we would almost. I mean, obviously we can't get there. But the idea is like we want to make sure you are being tried for the crime you committed, and you're getting the appropriate amount of punishment for that crime.
Right. That's the Justice Department. You want a better Justice Department.
I really didn't want to talk about this with this episode.
Well,
but you know what? You know what I'll say?
Yeah.
I'll say the only reason why I didn't want to do it is because everyone else is doing it, and I have this desire to be outside of like the circle.
Yeah.
But it is probably good that we had this conversation.
Yeah. Well, it'd be
because it is on everyone's mind.
Yeah.
And you have opened my eyes to just how much people are really still thinking about it and the kind of stuff people are taking away from it. I guess what I took away from it, and I've always looked at most of these situations as like, what's being done on a grander scale? What is the system that we're reinforcing? What is the changes that are going to happen? And I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I was initially wrong about Biden. Stock market went up when he first got elected, and he did a lot of things that ended up helping out my financial portfolio. Now he wants to tax me half of it.
Make us money, make us money. I got to piss.
Answer for Erickson.
Of what?
You asked how he could be convicted of multiple different types of murder.
Yeah.
So I looked it up, and it's a law thing where when the obviously, but it's when the let me put the things. So it's apparently when the defense is unsure if they're going to get, or the prosecution is unsure if they're going to get a conviction at all. So what they do is they throw the kitchen sink and they try to get him charged with as many things as they can.
Right, that's a tactic.
And so it's because like on every single conviction is like a success for their case.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a political move.
Right,
And
that's
so like it has nothing to do with what he did.
but that's bothersome to me then, because that's a man's life you're playing with.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like it's pretty obvious that George Floyd died because a man kneeled on his neck for 10 minutes straight.
8, but yeah.
But regardless, it's just like they did that to basically ensure. If you guys are talking about the politics of it, it's like the city's gonna burn if they don't convict this guy. It's like, of course they're gonna hit him with as many charges as they can because they have to get him.
I was gonna say it's
Okay.
like it's a fail-safe
Like
thing
I
where
said,
it's like, this applies,
the
this applies,
move,
this applies. Yeah.
move I understand. The chess move I get. The rules of the game I have a little bit of a problem with, because it's like, well, yeah, okay, you threw the kitchen sink at him because like we got to get him for something, but it's like, well, you ended up getting him for 3 things, and how is that possible? It's like, well, you know, the jury just decided we were right on all accounts. It's like, well, okay, but is it possible? And apparently it is, only by the way that our justice system works.
Also, the jury does deliberate each one of those. So it's
Right,
like,
and
yeah, it's not a blanket yes for all. They went.
Oh,
and,
yeah, I know.
you know.
It wasn't like, do you agree the whole... Well, obviously, that's why they're throwing multiples. They're like,
right.
which one of these do you think he's guilty of? And
Yeah.
they're like, well, we think every one of them. But
Yeah.
also, I mean, like, you know, we had a jury that had a tremendous amount of pressure on it. There was people who knew where they lived. They were sending, like, pig heads to their doorstep and stuff like that.
Right.
We're living in Gotham City now, man.
Well,
We
to
live
be
in a
fair,
society.
Alex, you heard, just said that they're also investigating his other complaints of excessive force, and it's like, while that's good, it's like you already got him on 3 different murder charges.
This goes back to my problem. They're focusing on him rather than like who else in
the
this
rest
on the
of the
force,
police
right? Who
force,
else in the
maybe?
force is doing shit?
I was
like-
like, you got one, and he's gonna be away for like 30 years.
Yeah, he's
40
done.
Years.
He's over.
Well, it should be life, but he's gonna be away for like 30 years.
Zach, it's life. That's life. He's not going to come out of there.
That's true. Yeah.
If
he's
he
dead.
does, it'll be on probation, but I don't think he'll survive because of the prisoners. I don't think prisoners like
there's
when a cop
no
come in.
way he goes to General Pop.
Okay.
That guy is not
Okay.
gonna see another prisoner.
Then he
But
might
yeah,
get out.
it is interesting that they're deciding to like pursue him
Yeah.
and like continuously, like stuff he's done,
Yeah.
instead of investigating like the people he worked with, or like the
Right.
precinct he worked in.
Right.
Like it's like why you already got this one for the terrible
Totally
thing
agree.
he did. Look for the other guys who are doing terrible things.
Well,
as
just-
well.
ju-
You're
ju-
wasting resources.
Well, just what you said right there, the precinct. Like, let's have an expose on the precinct. Let's start investigating the precinct. Let's like literally like I don't like okay, fuck like police laws around the country. Just show me what's going on in the Minneapolis Police Department,
Right.
because I think
But
like
he's not the only one.
that's what I'm saying.
That's
It's
the issue.
I don't believe he acted. I don't believe he was just the whole bad apple thing. I don't think he's a bad apple. I think you have a legitimate, to extend the metaphor, garden that's like, you know, just full of terrible.
Right, and that's where
motives.
I would completely agree with you on
Oh,
the
okay.
police reform, though, where it's like you got a lot of bad actors that you need to go through
that's
and
why I
find.
left, and that's why I left this result. And I think a lot of people did. I think I saw a lot of people. I mean, some of them
Wait,
just
what'd you
wanted
say about the result? You
the
liked
result
it,
of
or
the no? That's what I took away from.
oh, gotcha.
It. And I think I think I saw it from a lot of people. A lot of people being like, "This doesn't mean much." Like, I mean, like they're still pissed. And I think some of them just want to be angry. But I think a lot of people also just realized, like, now that we're here at this moment, being like, "Oh, right, this doesn't mean anything."
Yeah, Alex brings up a good point, saying
Yeah.
that the investigation is going into like the whole police department in Minneapolis. Basically, if they could show that the other cops knew he was doing it, because that's kind of
Yeah.
my thought. Is like, after he did that, do you think the guys that were around him were just like, "Oh, could you believe he did that?"
I gotta. So yeah, right.
like,
You know, Derek.
Well, you know that's what they were doing in front of people.
Well,
Oh,
something, Zach. Maybe you can find it, but
Interview their wives.
months
Interview their
months
wives.
ago or a year ago, I think it came out about his Freedom of Information Act about him as a police officer, and I believe he's been moved around departments before because of his excessive force. And I do believe there was one other instance that was, again, they said a racially charged, even excessive force that it was under investigation for. So that was one of the biggest reasons the defense didn't bring him up to talk either, is because if they didn't want to.
Chauvin?
Yeah.
Well, you just also don't typically bring up your
Right, but like the main like legal experts were like, yeah, you normally don't, but also this. Like if they would have brought up his former excessive force and
No,
whatnot.
you don't bring the person up because there's basically always gonna be something you can use
Right,
to like, and
right.
he has a whole.
Yeah, you plead the fifth.
Look, I started watching more closely after you or somebody else was talking about like the lifelessness in his eyes, and it seems like every picture I see of him, he really does seem like he has no human emotion whatsoever.
No, guy looks like an
Like,
actual fucking
He
chameleon.
definitely. I mean, I like I said, I was big on arguing the possibility that he might not have killed George Floyd mostly because I just always take on the side of the people who aren't, I guess, the minority. I try to see the other perspective that's not being echoed as loudly as the other because I think that you can get blinded by the majority.
You'd be a good 10th man, that's for sure.
Is that
It's Israeli
you mentioned
defense.
that before,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, no, exactly.
No, when if people know what a 10th man is,
Is that
it's
where
the
12
easy.
Angry Men came from?
No, but no, God no. But no, you for people that know what a 10th man is, when they're like, "What's Erickson's deal?" I'm like, "Ah, he's the 10th man," and they're like, "Oh, okay."
Well, explain what the 10th man is. I'll just say
Nah,
that.
it's just for people that get it. Now we'll move on.
Okay,
No,
fine,
I'm
fuck
fucking with
you.
you. It's in very very quick elevator pitch. These Israeli Defense Force, being caught off guard on the 6-day war, has a defense council of 10 where if they have their intel and all that, and all 10 of them agreed that there was no fucking way a certain outcome could have happened. They were all in agreement, and then what they agreed couldn't happen happened. So after that, they put in the 10th man clause, where if all 10 people agree, then the 10th man is then tasked with being the outlier of like, you have to prove why we're all wrong now.
Right,
And
right.
it's that's
I mean,
the
you
10th
called me
man.
a long time ago. I always forget his name. Was it John Adams, the one who basically defended the British during the Revolutionary War trials?
I called you John Adams?
Yeah.
All
Was
right.
that John Adams who did
Yeah,
that?
it was John
Because
Adams, yeah.
you're saying you always want to
Yeah,
make sure that
yeah,
the,
you're the 10th
that,
man,
that,
yeah,
that the guilty
yeah.
has like the most proper defense possible.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's true.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest. I mean, that's one of the few tenets of justice I really believe in. You're innocent until proven guilty, and you need to make a really beyond a shadow of doubt case. Because I live in a world. Well, and I don't live in a world, but I would like to live in a world where we are more comfortable with false negatives than more false positives.
Sure.
Because
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I'd rather a few. Because I also believe that like people who do commit crimes and do bad things will continue to do them, so they will inevitably get caught.
Right.
It'll come at the cost of a few things, but it shouldn't come at the cost of our freedoms. And if we're just locking most people up because they seem guilty, then we live in a more and more constricted society.
That's the story of the hurricane.
What is this hurricane you keep bringing up?
You got it's an 8-minute song that I'm not sure it's
Can you
Bob
just give
Dylan.
me the fucking cliff notes? I hate Bob Dylan.
It's I know a lot of people do.
Really? I thought I was
It's
the only one.
no. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
There's actually a certain group of people that really hate him.
Honestly, it's the thing that makes me question Steve Jobs so much. Like he's a genius. I'm like the guy loved Bob Dylan.
Yeah, that
He cried during his songs.
did he?
Yeah, he would cry when he played Bob Dylan, the Beatles. What's a hurricane? What's the hurricane?
It's the boxer. I'm trying to remember. It's not.
What's the anecdote exactly?
A black boxer is unjustly tried for a murder he didn't do, and they call it the story of the hurricane because his boxing nickname was the Hurricane.
Right.
He was at a fight, and actually, I think in the song, it's a self-defense.
Yeah.
Where he like punches a guy that was coming at him, didn't know, and I think the guy dies, but it was self-defense, and then they pin murder on him.
Right. That seems like that's probably based in some sort of truth.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
But basically, the story of the hurricane, whenever it's referred to, is somebody who's tried for something and then unjustly convicted to get the outcome that society wants.
I think that happens a lot the higher profile the case is. And the more of media coverage it typically gets, especially nowadays. And that's all I just walked away from. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I would like to see actual rational conversation, more wide open, macro level kind of like perspectives about what it is we're trying to change, what the problem is. And I just don't think I see that enough. And when I got the results of this, I was actually surprised I wasn't even angry. I was just like, yeah, okay, I guess that's how we're doing this. It's one of those things where I'm not scared because I don't think I'm ever going to be on, hopefully not. I mean, I won't be in trial for holding my knee on someone's back because there's no way I have that kind of strength. I never will.
Right.
But I like how I say, I like how
it was like right.
I like how I say,
sure.
how I say, I would say because I would never do it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I just would
Yeah,
never
you're
be able
not
to accomplish it.
strong enough,
Well, I don't think I don't have the option. How could I know if I would ever do it or not? But,
Right.
yeah, I don't know, dude. I just was like, this is, then I saw the Oscars and I was just like, wow, what a crazy like world we live in. We're just like, we just kind of don't really make a lot of changes. It seems like not for the better. Not
Yeah,
for
I was
the
gonna
better.
say we changed a lot, but
Not
not
for the
a lot
better.
of good changes.
I guess that's what it was. I think it was just kind of like the final nail in the coffin for me of like just like wow, what good has come out of the last year? Like real good towards like public discourse, like societal infrastructure. Like what has really come out of it? And I just kind of walked away like, there's one more man in jail. Okay, like
I would say that hopefully
if he was
real police reform is on the table.
and that's all this all started from was like I love that you think that will happen. I hope I'm wrong.
I mean,
But
some has, but we'll see if it's upheld.
We're gonna hold people down differently now.
Different
Cool.
training
Okay,
exercises,
awesome.
yeah.
The problem is that you guys hold people down willy nilly without any kind of recourse. And look,
Right.
at the same time, don't get me wrong.
Well,
do think
they're
there's a-
talking about getting rid of the immunity as well.
Well, I do
Right.
think. Well, and that's the thing that people don't want to talk about. It's tricky. It's like you don't want a police force that's also afraid of doing anything.
Right.
And that's the other thing I guess I'm really stumped about. I guess I just kind of walked away stumped, being like, I don't really even know what the solution is at this point because we need a police force that's willing to take like the shot, but we also need a police force that knows how to delegate that.
You know what? And this would segue pretty good, but we don't have time this week to do it. But into the gun thing we were going to talk about.
Let's talk about guns next week.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Like this.
That was a pretty intense conversation. That was a pretty intense run around two circles.
Yeah. Real figure eight.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What's this? Okay. Oh, here we go. Here's your graph. White. Wait. Opposite of disenfranchised.
Yeah.
Okay. Asian post COVID.
There you
Not
go.
opinion of salsa parlor. Disenfranchised
solid.
populations by race. I love native. Not Native
What's up
American,
there?
just native.
Yeah, native people.
Native people. People native of their country are not as disenfranchised as black people. But the Asians are the most disenfranchised. I also love.
Here's the science behind it.
Zach,
By the way, color choice,
yeah, I was
color
gonna
choice
say,
on point,
Zach,
by the way, Zach.
the colors you got going on here, bud. You want to explain those?
really want to make it straightforward.
What's that? The colors?
Yeah.
It's a color-coded graph.
Okay.
for no confusion.
All right.
Uh,
Jesus.
no, that's just the colors that I saw first. So I picked those ones.
When I thought of
Yeah,
those
yeah,
different types
right.
of people.
You really ink blot that one, huh, bud?
I just did two different shades of yellow. Here's the thing. No, there's some science behind this. So you notice how white people are still on the graph, and that's because of trailer park people.
Okay.
And those people are still disenfranchised, and also
Sure, the white people that are like, I don't know about this privilege everyone's talking about.
people
Yeah.
that make like moonshine.
Yeah. Okay.
I know. There's actually science
And then
behind this.
of course black people are off the charts. Native people not as high as black people, and the scientific reason behind this is because we already did them dirty, and they've had time to they've had a long time to sit in it.
Okay.
Like it still sucks, just like because same thing, slavery. Like
They were here
Okay,
before we
yeah.
bought
Yeah, you got
slaves.
it.
I get it.
now Hispanic people, the reason why they're so low is because they do get a lot of jobs here.
Okay.
So like they're employed, and
All right.
that's important to
All right.
Legally, though.
Also, like we do them dirty, but like they also are coming here. That's a whole nother conversation you guys.
Okay.
Can have.
Yeah.
Now Asian, should say pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, they were doing pretty good.
They weren't though.
Not the best. Like they're no white, but
I mean, the chart. Yeah, the chart shows not the best. Yeah.
not the best. Better than the.
You got this from the ACLU, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is also from the pandemic website as well.
Okay,
but,
the CDC.
the CDC.
Okay. Oh, there's Worldometers. Okay.
Yeah, this is from World of
All right.
And then all the way over here, you got Asians post-COVID, and this is with the China virus and stuff. As you can see,
Yeah.
they're even worse than everybody else right now. They're really
Okay.
getting the short end of the stick.
Well, we got to flatten the curve. Bring these numbers down. We got to bring these down.
Well, as you
That's
can
what you've been
see-
arguing. That's what you were arguing the whole time, Eric. We just gotta flatten the curve.
Just gotta flatten
We
the
just gotta
curve.
make it so every race
if
is getting less abuse.
Flatten that curve.
if we weren't so shitty to Asians post-COVID,
We were shooting them before COVID.
not as bad. And that's what's important if you notice the graph. If this was lower post-COVID, like if we had woke up a little bit towards Asians as opposed to went in the other direction, you would have seen a downward trend, and that's kind of where the worldometer stuff
Yep.
comes
Okay.
into play. See, as what you can see is if you look at the bar graph, which is not logarithmic and it's also not a timeline, but you can also view it that
I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, you got the X and the Y axis there, though. Yeah.
way. This is actually a 3D graph, but I can only give you guys the 2D.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of stuff behind these.
It's good. Yeah. Just percentage. We don't know what, but it's there.
I mean, you really don't need a percentages. Look how long those fucking lines are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's really a graph for 4-year-olds.
Okay.
I
That
think,
seems about right.
honestly, be careful what you wish for,
Yeah.
because this might be actually taught in elementary school soon.
They're gonna
Sh-
post
All right. Shameless plugs.
I just figured that we could use a little bit of lighthearted
Yeah.
racism after some sincere racism.
Anytime, man. I appreciate it.
There it is.
Okay, yeah. So that's if you guys want to hear more funny shit, where can we find you, Lewis?
You can find me on YouTube at Salsa Parlor and like and subscribe. We do the morning show
How close are we to getting the full subscriptions?
at 84.
You got more though.
Yeah, we're chugging along. Yeah, Loaded for Bear on YouTube, Loaded for Bear 308 on Instagram, Lou the Surgeon on Instagram and Twitch, and stand-up comedy all around this month and next month. You can see the dates on Lou the Surgeon.
Do you have a show tonight?
I do. It's at Crunchies, but they know. They'll be there.
You know,
Yeah, I got it.
people know about.
oh,
like,
yeah,
you
and then
there might be one stranger
yeah,
from
sure.
from like
Lansing area,
Georgia
they're coming.
in Charlottesville polishing their AK-14
Yeah,
or
like,
whatever
I gotta-
number the guns are
These
these
guys
days.
seem funny.
Being like, well, I like this Ben Shapiro guy.
Yeah, right. Free consultation will be coming back as well.
It's
so,
not. It's been gone.
we took a hiatus. Just
And you introduced me to the idea of a vacation for
Yeah.
podcast, and I was like, you know what? That is such a smart idea.
yeah, you need to have some off time from creative projects. It breathes new light. So yeah, that does it. Free consultation anywhere podcasts can be found.
And I guess for me, guys, you can find me here at the Obstacle on Mondays. I'll be out of town at least for the next month, but we'll be doing it like we used to on YouTube via Zoom, which is the new way that most people do podcasts. And then, of course, you want to hear me rile other people up other than Lewis, you can go on my podcast, Just Erickson.
Who
the
else
Just
you
Erickson
riling
podcast.
up? You rile up on because I never get riled up on your podcast. I'm all jokes there.
You know what? I don't rile. It's funny how I talk the same way on other people's podcasts. I mean, on my podcast with other people, but it's very different. Maybe they're just being pleasant because
no, we
my
just because
podcast.
when I'm
not
it's
talking
your
about you.
arena. I'm like,
I'm not-
this is fun. I don't
Yeah, I
have to
guess
take
that's what
anything you say serious
I guess
here.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Is that people know it's just like, look, this is all on me, so don't worry
Yeah,
about it. Like you're just,
when you say some crazy shit on your podcast, I'm like, let her rip, buddy.
that's funny.
I'm like,
That's some insightful information. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't. No one has ever. Yeah, it's never gotten as heated on my podcast as it does when we do this. But it pretty much is the same kind of conversation. But sometimes it's not.
yeah, I talk way more comedy with you on your podcast.
I try not to. I
Really?
really
Uh-huh.
hate talking at stand up. I think it's one of the biggest disservices and one of the most cringy things we'll look back at in our lives when we see ourselves talking.
See, I don't talk about the jokes. I talk about the grind of like open mic life,
And
or not even open mic life. But Elena and I had a very fun podcast talking about it, and it's like it's the come up, not like ooh this is funny and why. It's like
no,
oh
I get
god,
that,
yeah.
and it's funny how I do have an interest in hearing more stories about people who are trying to make it.
Yeah.
It's just that like I don't hear every open micer, myself included,
Yeah.
when they talk about open micing, it's the same story. It's just like you just basically keep showing up.
Yeah.
You keep showing up. Sometimes you do well, sometimes you don't. You always feel like you're the shit until that one show you do that makes you realize you're nowhere near where you need to be.
Yeah.
And then you keep doing it.
Yep.
Like,
And
I would rather talk. I want to talk to people who want to quit. That's why I want to talk to people who are like, "What made you decide to leave?"
oh my god. I'll tell you what it is. They won't even do the podcast.
Yeah. Exactly.
Whatever they have, they're like, yeah, I don't need any of this bullshit. So
Well, guys, we'll be back next Monday. Yeah, that was the show. We'll talk about guns next Monday.
guns,
What do
baby.
you want to even talk about when it comes to guns?
Whether we need them.
We definitely need them.
See,
We're
there
going to
we
be in
go.
agreement on most things.
if
when
we
it comes to
need
guns.
them,
Which you know what, I'm gonna okay,
specifically if you and I need
I'm
6
gonna make
shooters
an
in
effort
here.
to ask you more questions because you're the one who I find most interesting. Because like that's the thing, you seem to like lean very liberal in a lot of progressive ways. When it comes to gun, you seem to be very much
Yeah,
strong on, like, no, we need to have those.
Yeah, I'm socially liberal in a lot of ways, but it turns pretty libertarian where I'm like, yeah, just don't fuck with me and mine, and then you do your shit.
You're an interesting
Like,
version of a conservative.
Yeah, I'm like, don't fucking, because again, like, my conservative side is as long as you are not breaking the law or hurting anybody else or yourself, fucking cool.
Okay. Oh man, maybe okay.
Yeah.
Well, the question is, what's the definition of hurting somebody?
Like bodily harm and or causing mental duress.
Mental duress. So that's where it gets a little gray. Okay, we got a lot to talk about the next coming weeks. I'll keep this in my head. Okay, guys, thanks so much for watching. We're done with this this episode.
See you guys. Bye.